This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. Very hot day here in Ottawa, Canada, where WWE is coming tomorrow for Monday Night Raw. There's about 7,300 pre-sold. According to Dave Meltzer, they've been in Toronto all weekend. They're there tonight for Heat Wave. But according to Magnum TA, former WWE executive, of course, has lots of contacts on the inside. He claims that Roman Reigns will be re-signing with WWE for Brock Lesnar level money when he comes back to the company whenever this hiatus is over. Obviously, his dad's been sick and his dad passed away. He had the funeral over the weekend. Lesnar reportedly makes about $12 million a year before merchandise bonuses, and they haven't even used him since SummerSlam. So he's doing quite well for himself and probably very happy to be getting paid that much money to work his farm. But Roman Reigns reportedly makes around $5 million a year now before bonuses. But Magnum says when he resigns, it'll be at that level money. A lot of people think John Cena will be making even more money than that for his 18-month return, because his schedule, he says he's going to wrestle 30 to 40 times in about an 18-month time period. So think about this. Brock Lesnar hasn't even wrestled since SummerSlam, and he's making $12 million a year. Roman Reigns, how much has he wrestled for his $5 million? So think about it. If Cena, who is a bigger star than Roman Reigns, is going to wrestle 30 to 40 times, is he going to be making closer to The Rock money, which The Rock recently got $30 million in a board of directors role? Should be interesting. I did watch the rest of the Money in the Bank press conference, the Triple H part. Brandon Thurston, who's been on this channel, asked him about the federal investigation to Vince McMahon, which he said basically blew that comment off. A lot of fluff questions. He said it was the largest arena gate in the history of Canadian wrestling. In other words, they're charging more than ever for tickets. Now, this does not count WrestleMania 6 or WrestleMania 18, which were larger, even though the ticket prices weren't as crazy as they were today. Someone pointed out it is interesting, and I'm not holding this against Triple H. He seems to be taking the Dana White role of the WWE, where, like, for a guy that's no longer in the spotlight, he was like the last guy to talk at the press conference. Whenever someone new wins a championship, he takes a picture. He's posted with new signees all the time. So he's arguably more in the limelight now than he was when he was WWE champion. So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I mean, Dana White's doing it successfully for UFC. The other thing Triple H said, which is going to be interesting, he has a good point, that 80% of the globe has access to Netflix. So they have a way more bigger potential viewership once they move to Netflix. And I agree with that, because people like me that don't buy Netflix normally will get Netflix because of WWE. Not that I want to sit and watch every Raw and SmackDown, but the WWE Network version they had here in Canada sucked. It was awful. It wasn't the same as the one you guys get in the States. It was terrible. Okay, there was nothing good about it. But with Netflix, not only you get the WWE content, which isn't going to be like the network. It's where you're going to get all the history, maybe some historical shows here or there, or some specials. But like, you'll be able to watch the pay-per-views and stuff, but you'll also get regular Netflix movies and stuff for people like me that don't have cable. So it'd be worth it. It'll be worth it for me to get it, at least to try it out. Not that I would have been able to sit through Money in the Bank, because honestly, I haven't heard great reviews of the show other than the Cena thing. I didn't hear it was a terrible show, but there was a lot of mistakes in several of the matches. But whatever. I'm not watching it. I'm sure some people liked it, some people didn't, just like any other show. The one other interesting thing that he said, though, which is now slipping my mind. But yeah, it was an interesting press conference. Get into more about John Cena. Dave Meltzer recently brought up, of course, my good friend Rick Bassman is the one that got Cena into wrestling. But he was signed almost right away to his WWE contract. He wrestled for Ultimate Pro Wrestling, Rick Bassman's company, and OVW, but it was under the WWE umbrella. So he's kind of like a born and bred WWE talent. And yeah, he's going to make the biggest money of his career. Here's one thing I wanted to go over. Okay, I don't necessarily agree with this, and you fans, I'm sure, are going to want to chime in on this. Dave Meltzer put out a top 15 draws of all time. Now, and he's basing this on like how dominant they were during an era, which WWE is running like 2 house shows for their main brand this summer. And they've canceled. I'm not dissing WWE. I'm impressed with them. I'm just saying it's not nearly the Hogan era or the John Cena era now, where there's like house shows every night, or Austin era, and they're packing the house shows. Premium live events, people are going for the spectacle, and because it's a pay-per-view. So you really can't base the same drawing power in this premium live event TV era, when like you can't compare like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, who are hardly doing house shows, to Hulk Hogan, who was out there every night, or Ric Flair, who was out there every night, because it's kind of different. Or John Cena. I was at house shows doing security, and I attended a Puerto Rican house show with not only John Cena, but a lot of other people headlined it. And I never attended a John Cena house show that didn't have a decent crowd. But like, look at it, for Raw for Ottawa tomorrow, they're in an 18,000 seat arena. Really, if they wanted to delete the back end of it, they could probably fit closer to 20,000. They got 7,000 pre-sold. So how could you put, I don't even know who's headlining it tomorrow, on the same level as a Hulk Hogan, which, by the way, the SmackDown with The Rock and Hogan here a couple nights after WrestleMania 18, it was almost completely full, the arena. Actually, I think it was The Rock against Kevin Nash, and Hogan interfered or something. Hogan bled on it. I remember that. But I remember I got my ticket to it after I found out Hogan was going to be there. And it was last minute, because I was just happened to be coming back to Ottawa. I was living in Calgary at the time. And I was like way, way, way at the top of the nosebleed section. But let's get into this list, as this is turning into a long update. But this list, I don't know. Okay, so I'm not going to argue about the people I don't know that well, but Jim Londos, he says, is number 1. Bruno Sammartino, number 2, biggest draw. Luthez, number 3. 4, Bill Longson. Number 5, Hulk Hogan. Number 6, Ed Strangler Lewis. Number 7, Ric Flair. Number 8, Buddy Rogers. Number 9, Argentina Rocca. Number 10, John Cena. Number 11, Roman Reigns. Number 12, Joe Stretcher. Number 13, Andre the Giant. Number 14, Triple H. Number 15, The Sheik. You know what? I'm not going to be politically correct in this, but you can't put Triple H, like just after Andre the Giant and Roman Reigns before Andre the Giant. Like Roman Reigns is not like night in and night out packing places like Andre was, and not even packing it, but getting good crowds for decades at a time. I don't know, man. It's a questionable list. Definitely. I'm not going to get into it much. You fans can talk about it in the comments, but it's just I guess you gotta if you want to be neutral and just consider the era that there's hardly any house shows, and as far as night in and night out, there's not as many people going, but for these premium live events that friggin' are full of celebrities and wrestlers coming back out of nowhere, and then some person just randomly happens to be at the top of the card. It's not the same as like Ric Flair drawing the house against an opponent, or Billy Graham. Anyways, last thing I'll talk about before I get into your questions: Nate Diaz versus George Masvidal actually got 500,000 Google searches, which, by the way, Money in the Bank got 200,000. So two guys that aren't even in UFC anymore, boxing, more than doubled WWE searches. And I'm not saying that as an insult to WWE. I'm saying that people were interested in that fight. And AEW didn't even make any trends the week before. John Cena got 100,000 Google searches. So Masvidal and Nate Diaz, a lot of people have written Nate Diaz off, but he can still get people talking. It's very impressive. And I will say one thing, which is good as Triple H talks about, like they're getting more revenue than ever. The company is making more money than ever for these high ticket prices, less shows, more lines of revenue. To me, the product isn't as interesting. It just isn't. There was no match on that show that I wanted to see. If there would have been any, it would have been the main event 6-man match, but I knew the winner. I'm not even as big a boxing fan as I am in wrestling, although I'm somewhat of a fan of boxing. I would have if I had the choice between watching the two pay-per-views or whatever the hell you want to call them, I would have rather watched the George Masvidal versus Nate Diaz fight. Just because you can say what you want, there was absolutely nothing that interests me on that pay-per-view. The only thing that interests me was John Cena's speech, which wasn't advertised. So as good as they are, they're not like the quality of the product for people like me. Just it's not there. When can we talk about farts? Well, I should have Ken Patera back on here because he had some great Andre the Giant fart stories. There you go, Chef. Thanks for the tip. I'll put it up there. Chef Ramsay. By the way, I went to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in New York City a few years ago. And for a guy that has the Kitchen Nightmares show, the bathrooms were literally overflowing with paper towels. They hadn't cleaned their paper towels. And I don't even remember the name of it. There was a dressy side and a non-dressy side. I chose to go on the non-dressy side. And I remember I had a rack of lamb and I ate the lamb off the bone after. And the waitress, as a way of apologizing to the table beside for having me eat the lamb off the bone, they gave them a free dessert. And those people, being British, where they like to eat lamb, were like, we thought it was good that he ate the whole thing. He didn't waste meat and ate it off the bone. He can have the dessert. And they gave the dessert to me. So I have to say, Gordon Ramsay, your bathroom wasn't clean. And your waitress was insulting by doing that. The lamb itself was good, clearly. Yeah, Mike, there seems like there's a hell of a lot of botches, and it's funny. Someone actually asked Triple H about one of the botches, in the press conference. And he's like, I wish people wouldn't focus on that, but that's all that they focus on. Well, it's more because it's more interesting than the product. I'm sorry. A lot of the finishes are predictable, and well, I hear the girls' match had like 20 botches in it. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it, but I heard there was a ridiculous amount of botches in it. But I know the Damian Priest match supposedly had one. When am I going to talk to Wayne Ferris again? He doesn't want to do podcasts anymore because he is on good terms with WWE now, and he saved his money well. He doesn't want to get more heat because a lot of the interviews he did with me got a lot of heat. Who knows? Never say never. Oh God, Chef, you're too much. Yes, NXT and TNA are working closely together. Rasvidal. And it wouldn't surprise me, actually, that if TNA doesn't do something on the NXT pay-per-view in Toronto, because TNA's next pay-per-view is in Montreal. And it's actually going to be their biggest crowd in a long time. One of the reasons is this WWE connection. The other reason is PCO has been personally working his butt off to build it. But I could see Triple H has already said, or Shawn Michaels recently said, he want NXT, for instance, they're only doing 5 house shows this summer. They want places like NOAH and TNA where they can send wrestlers to get them experience and seasoning in front of a crowd without WWE having to lose a crap load of money on shows. They're probably more than likely helping fund TNA. That'd be an educated guess that they're doing the same thing they did with ECW. Because anytime there's ever been a WWE invasion, they've actually ended up owning the companies like WWE and WCW and ECW. But yeah, I would expect that collaboration to do better, to do more and more. It's kind of like flattened out. There was an initial spike in rating. It's kind of flattened out, but it's still been good for both companies. Chris, I think Sami Zayn is like one of Triple H's boys because it made no sense. Like, it made absolutely no sense to have Sami Zayn, who people that are athletes look at as like a weak-looking person, beat a guy that's Goldberg size. That like why do that? It doesn't even make sense. Ramsey needs a ghetto blesser. Sergeant Slaughter was a draw, yes. Hello to you. Roman Reigns, yes, he'll be back. That's why Magnum TA is saying they're going to be paying him huge amounts of money. What are my thoughts of MJF? Good for him for making $5 million. Here's something interesting. I would love to know what your average wrestler makes per match in AEW. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. I remember now. Triple H tried to deny it was a dig at AEW. He later said it was a dig to their old format of 7-hour pay-per-views, which is way too long. I will say one good thing for Triple H. He's making I have nothing against him. Nothing against him. He seems to be doing better now than it was in the last 10 or 15 years. I'll give him that. But he took a shot at like Tony Khan by saying, like, taking a shot around at long pay-per-views, saying by the time the main events get out there, the crowd is dead. Which actually happened to Triple H and Chris Jericho in Toronto when they had to follow The Rock and Hogan. But yeah, what are my thoughts on MJ? Or what? One thing I was going to ask is I wonder what the average AEW wrestler makes per match, because they have so many people under contract that hardly ever wrestle, and the minimum pay is supposedly about $150,000 a year. And Eric Bischoff actually said that Mercedes Moné makes $5 million a year. I heard Eric Bischoff say that. I had heard she was making $4 million. So someone like Mercedes Moné, break that down per match. She's wrestled what, twice so far? Like, these people in AEW are cleaning up. When is my next match supposed to be? August 31st. Braun Breaker's a future superstar. He could be a bigger star now. Sergeant Slaughter interview. Yeah, I'm sure I'd get one of these days. There is a Sergeant Slaughter interview on my channel if you search it up, but it's not with me. Have a great night, everyone. Appreciate all the comments.